This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry, and with me is Tim Parrish and Clemente Lisi. And today we're going to talk about a variety of hockey and hockey-related topics, including how tariffs will probably affect the hockey trading card industry. So anyways, that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. I want to give a quick shout out to Jordan Papadopoulos for the idea of talking about that for a podcast topic. And so we thought, all right, why not? Let's just talk about it in this episode since we were going to record today. We'll talk about a few other things as well. But first, let's get caught up because it's been a couple of weeks. So guys, how you doing? Clemente, we'll start with you. What's the latest and or the greatest?
Well, it's March, so I'm just trying to embrace the madness.
Basketball fan, huh?
Everybody is this time of year. Is that forbidden to say on a hockey podcast? I don't think so. But
no, the only thing I could care less about than basketball is college basketball.
I prefer college over the NBA.
Okay, well, a lot of people say that, but the thing is like I teach for DePaul University, which used to be a college basketball powerhouse in the 80s. So when I tell people I teach for DePaul, they go, oh, yeah, DePaul, yeah, the Blue Demons, they had such a great basketball team in the 80s. That's what they say. And I'm like, yes, well, I have nothing to do with the basketball team. In the 80s was 40 years ago. But yes, that is the school that I teach for, right?
Right.
And I remember when Loyola made it into maybe the grade 8 or whatever they call it.
Elite 8.
Elite 8. We were watching those games because Loyola is another Chicago college. But yeah, no March Madness with me, but glad that you're doing well. Tim, how about you?
Well, I think the meds are going to kick in at any minute, so I have a lot to look forward to, I guess, once that happens. But I mean, at least there's the Frozen Four. You can look forward to that.
Yes.
If you don't like basketball, I mean, we're coming up to the same general time frame to keep it hockey related. You don't want to mention basketball, which I usually don't. We do a March Madness thing at work, and we basically take everybody's TVs out of their offices and set them all up and plug them all in. And so we have all the games going at the same time for the first 2 days. That's usually fun.
That does sound like fun.
No work gets done those days.
Yeah, I was going to say productivity is like totally drops across the country.
It does. So we figured might as well embrace the non-productivity. And
yeah, I agree.
We'll get food in for Thursday and Friday and just make a thing out of it. So it's fun. It's better than therapy.
Sports is better than therapy?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's cheaper too.
It can't be therapeutic, that's for sure.
It's definitely cheaper.
Well, I think like our hobby of card collecting, but I was going to say for me, it's therapeutic because there are times when I just get so into what I'm doing, I lose track of time. And I think that's like a good thing. Like when you're into it, like if I'm like opening in packs and sorting cards or organizing my collection or putting cards in pages or whatever, like, and I lose track of time and I go, oh my God, it's midnight, like I've been doing this for 4 hours, and didn't even realize it. And I think, there is something nice about that.
Yeah, no, I think we all need distractions, right? So I agree. Sports is and sports cards are definitely a big part of that. I agree.
As much as it is therapeutic, it also stresses me out too.
It can.
Or
right?
the organizing part. Because I always find myself like, you know what, I'm going to do this and do that. And then I realize there's other things that aren't the way I want them. And then I have to move this and move that, change this and relabel something or put something in a different box. And then something goes missing and then I got to go search for it. And it freaks me out because I can't find it. It's like one thing after another.
Especially when you have it. You're like, I know
Yeah.
I have it.
All that drives me absolutely batty. Like, because I have so much stuff that, much of it is buried because it's out of sight, out of mind. Like, unless it's actual PC stuff, not PC like people in 2025 want to call everything they own as PC, like my actual things that I would not get rid of. I'm like, I know I have this card. Where is it? And I look through a box. It's not there. I look in a binder. It's not there. I'm like, what the heck did I do with this? And then it turns out I bought it for a set rather than putting it in the team collection. So it's in the set instead. So now I got to go find another one and get another one. It's just,
You know what's funny when you're looking for stuff and then you find stuff you're like I don't even know I had this or I forgot I had it, and it's like having it all. It's like brand new all over again. So it's true. I look at it as a never ending kind of quest. You can't ever think it's going to end. It never really ends, and that's sort of part of you have to embrace the journey more than the destination. There is no destination.
yeah, that's why I always say collecting's a marathon, not a race.
Yeah,
If you're trying to race to be the first or, whatever,
yeah.
it's not really collecting. There's no fun in that. Yeah, you're the first. That wears off quickly.
That's just for social media people. Like they post that on social media. We don't do that, so we don't really care about being first. It's eventually getting there.
I was thinking about that the other day. I'm like, I've been on X for a long time, like back to 2010. I don't have as many posts as a lot of people, especially even newer people that's all they do. And I'm like, I could like post every day. I could post 10 times a day about all sorts of stuff, but I just don't. And I don't know if it's because I don't like to share, because I do like to share. Maybe it's just I don't want to feel like I'm bragging about stuff.
I don't think you'd be bragging about stuff because you've never been like, hey, I pulled this one of one card from a $2,000 box of cards kind of guy. You know what I mean? Like when people are like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Right. And they're posting like some sports card with like an autograph and a patch and it's like a numbered, like low numbered or whatever. Or when they ask, did I do good? Or what do you think this is worth? Or I can't believe I got this. And it's not even like a
Yeah, but I'm
humble
not going to
brag.
fall
It's
into that trap.
no, but and that's what I mean. Like you've never posted content like that. Sometimes you just say like, here's a card that I have that I like, and that's okay, you know?
Every time I always see everybody's like ComC orders. Like people post, oh, look what I got. I'm like, cool.
Well, but that's because ComC retweet. Yeah, because ComC retweets those, so
They
I see
do.
them too. Yeah, I see them too.
They've even retweeted mine, if you can believe that. I guess we're on a working relationship again. But I think the difference is like a lot of people will ship their cards to them like 15, 20 cards in an order. No, I wait to ship my stuff when I have over 500 to ship. And so when I get everything, it's a big old box and I try to share and I lose interest in sharing. So like, this is taking too long, taking pictures and
It's work. It's work.
yeah, it is. It's a ton of
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
And I want this to be fun,
And
not
for
work.
what? For likes? I mean, that's the thing. What's the end game? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have to post pictures of it, then that becomes work, and then you're not enjoying the cards, which is putting them with the other cards, filling your sets, whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the fun part. Real quick, I just got to address. I sound like I'm sick. I'm not. I just lost my voice a little bit because I was at the Chicago Sports Spectacular this past weekend, which we will talk about, and I was talking a lot. And sometimes it's loud in there, and it's almost like you have to talk over the constant announcements of like now signing autographs, blah blah blah, and or stuff like that. So I talked a lot over the weekend. I would have liked to have rested my voice today, but it's been 2 weeks since our last podcast. So also, I'm not like a singer who needs to rest his voice, and I don't have to teach for 2 weeks. So I think I'll be okay. But yeah, so I'm not dying or anything. I'm just a little hoarse.
Should we call you Pony?
Pony, yes.
Because you're a little horse.
Oh, I like that. But one thing I want to point out, we were talking about you just mentioned about therapeutic and then getting annoyed about like knowing you have a card and can't finding it. I'll tell you what's annoying, and this happened to me the other day. I was putting cards in pages and like I got off by like one number because one card was missing.
Oh, that's the worst.
And they had to go back and
You got to find where you screwed it up. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
worst.
I had to undo a bunch of pockets. Yeah, I had to go back like 4 pages, and I'm like undoing them all, and then I had to redoing it. So no, that to me is annoying.
When my last ComC order came in, my 74-75 tops set that's bindered,
Yep.
same exact thing happened to me. So I'm like going through it. I'm putting the cards in. I'm like, cool. I'm filling holes. I like completed some pages, which made me feel good. And then I went to put one in. I'm like, wait, that's already there. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not right. And I looked and I was like, oh crap. And so I started flipping back. I'm like, where did I screw up? And of course, it was all the way back in the 60s. And
Oh.
yeah, so that was a pain.
My joke is that card collectors know the multiples of 9 by heart,
Mm-hmm.
at least up to 108. Then after that, I have to think a little harder. But if you always remember that the last card in the 9 pocket page is either it's if you take the if it's a 3-digit number or whatever, if you take the numbers, they should always add up to 9. So like, card number 9, that adds up to 9. Card number 54, 5 and 4 is 9. Card number 63, 6 and 3 is 9. Card number 117, 1 plus 1 plus 7 is 9, right? So that's how I kind of do that reality check. Oh, I'm at card 369 and it's in the last spot. 3 plus 6 is 9 plus 9 is 18. You know what I mean? So that's how I always remember, which I guess is common sense, maybe.
Binders? What are binders? No, I'm just kidding.
Binders. Yeah, maybe the Chicago schools were just better at multiplication. I don't know. No, but we all grew up in big cities, so we believed in the 3 R's. Okay, what I want to talk about real quick, I just want to give a couple of shout outs to some listeners who actually took the time to comment either on puckjunk.com, where I post the podcast, or on other forms of social media. So Andre said, thank you to everyone, including the rest of the podcast crew, for letting a collector like me know that I am not alone in this hobby. They call it junk wax, but I do miss the early 90s! Exclamation point. I would agree with that assessment, wouldn't you? Like, we kind of miss the early 90s and they call it junk wax, but what do I call it? Neo retro.
It's because we're all proud Gen Xers. That's why.
I'm just surprised they didn't slam me for some reason. So.
P.S. I hate Tim.
Yeah, that's usually the go-to comment. So I'm just happy I got away with one for once. Chalk that one up for me.
Yes. A win for Tim. So this next one you'll like. So this guy uses the handle of Vape Man. I wonder if Vape Man is a friend of stoner negativity.
Oh God, I don't like where this segue's going.
Yeah. All right. So Vape Man says Tim is truly a poet. Clemente is insightful, and Sal is a great host. Keep it up, boys.
A poet?
How did you drink that water without like choking?
I almost did. I almost did like a full-on like
spit take.
70s sitcom spit take right there.
I was waiting for that. Yeah, so
a poet.
Wow. Tim is truly a poet. Clemente is insightful, and Sal is a great host. Keep it up, boys.
Well, I don't even.
You'll take that one, Tim. Take that one.
I'm speechless. That's 2. Chalk 2 up.
Yes. Yes. All right. Mike C said, great episode as always, boys. Love the show with its mix of current news and past card history and all that you guys do. Thank you.
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Hey, I'll take it.
I'm waiting for the boom to drop.
Yeah. I'm still waiting. Oh, he's got one. He was saving it.
No,
in the chamber.
No. So this one is regarding 24-25 synergy. So this is specific to synergies, what he's talking about. So John Bateman commented, Upper Deck has really found a niche with their hockey cards. These cards look great, but I am not a collector who wants to buy a box for $100 for 20 to 25 cards.
It's fair.
That's fair.
I am not either. So
yeah.
Turns out nobody is. That's why synergy is not gonna go far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you spend a lot of money and you get just a handful of cards, they're usually all really good cards. We like synergy. Well, I don't want to say we like synergy. Like we like some of the things about synergy, and I think we all kind of agree that you don't really get a lot of cards for the price, and that there's just too many impossibilities.
Right.
Can't really put together a set. Really hard to put together a red parallel set or the red parallel code set or to do the redemption or even complete the insert sets because there's like 2 or 3 different parallel versions of the insert set. So it's just kind of a mess. It's like, yeah, it's just kind of random, it feels. Yeah, but all positive vibes this week or, recently.
Right.
No negative ones, which are always fun to read also.
You know what they say. You haven't made it till you have haters.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Once I started getting people criticizing me on the Puck Junk blog, I'm like, I've made it.
I used to always say that the way you make it, at least my old bar of making it pre-social media, was if you had like say you're a movie star, you had a poster in the subway in New York, and someone put a mustache on you. I'm like, you've made it. Like,
Yeah.
that's the way, someone's defaced your face in public now, then you've made it, And so now with social media, it's a little different. But in the old days, if you had a billboard somewhere, that was the way you made
No one's ever defaced my face in public, but they don't have to. I was just born like this.
it.
Let's move on to the Chicago Sports Spectacular because I do want to talk about that because I always want to talk about that because something that I look forward to. Tim, I definitely want to get your opinion because you walked the floor for several hours. I only got to walk the floor when I was running to the bathroom and then maybe coming back slowly and trying to check out a few tables or like during setup time like Saturday morning or Sunday morning being able to squirrel away a few minutes and like just take a quick walk around before the show officially opened. So the show is March 14th to 16th of 2025 in Rosemont. Admission was $20 a day. There were a lot of autograph guests. As far as hockey guests go, Phil Esposito canceled due to illness. Jerry Cheevers, Jeremy Roenick, and Michelle Goulet were there signing autographs, as was Sean Weiss, the actor who played Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks movies. The show was pretty busy all weekend. Definitely busy on Saturday. Pretty busy on Sunday, too, at least from what I gathered. Tim, I want to know your thoughts on that in a moment because you were there on Sunday. I know my buddy Greg McLaughlin, who hosts a Star Wars podcast called the Rebel Base Card Podcast, which focuses on Star Wars trading cards, but he also does episode reviews of like the Disney Plus series and even talks about toys and stuff. I was a guest on the show one time to talk about toys, and then another time to talk about Upper Deck losing the Marvel license. I think I'd rather have the Marvel license than the NHL license. So he talked to me, so I'll be on his show again. We talked about the sports spectacular. And I'll just say this really quick because, Tim, I know you mentioned that there were a lot of empty tables that you saw. They were making announcements on Sunday. They were saying to us, dealers, if you see any tables that are empty, let us know. We do not want people setting up on them because if there's an empty table, sometimes somebody will just open their bro case and start throwing their cards out on it. I did buy a few things. People come to me to sell stuff all the time when I'm at the show. So it's kind of funny because I don't always buy stuff that I'm looking for. It's kind of like it finds me and I go, "Oh yeah, I totally would buy that," right? And I'll buy it off of them. So it's kind of a different way of shopping, although I did find one card that's been eluding me for a little while. 7980 Topps Hockey card number 8 Shutout Leaders. There are 3 versions of this card. This one is a rare, or I don't know if it's rare, but there's a variant where the 2 next to Mike Palmateer's name overlaps the first letter of his name, and they fixed it. So, like, there's a version of this card where they swapped some of the headshots, so the wrong name is with the wrong face. They have one that's corrected, and then this one is corrected, but the typography is off. So that's cool because I like getting variations. So I did have a chance to actually find that card and a couple other cards that I needed. But yeah, I mean, it was a pretty busy show Saturday, Sunday. On Friday, I was just like, "Oh, this show's terrible. I don't know if I'm going to do another show. This is so slow. I'm going to fail. This is bad. What am I doing? I'm wasting my life." Saturday was okay, and on Sunday, I'm like, "Yeah, all right, still got it." And by got it, I mean got the cards that people want. Because yeah, I mean, I did. It's when you sell an Ian Mitchell autograph, you're like, somebody really wanted that Ian Mitchell autograph, and even though he hasn't been on the Blackhawks in like 2 years, somebody still wanted the card, and glad that I had it. So, anyways, Tim, what do you think? You got to experience the show as more of a shopper than me. So, what do you think?
I think the whole reason why your entire weekend was made was that last $6 sale you made, like right at the very end, when the announcement was made for people to get out.
That's right. Some weirdo went through my 3 for $1 boxes and bought my penguins. Oh, wait, it was you.
I bought like 3 penguins. The rest were all those MVP cards I needed for my set build.
What did I say? I said, Tim, just take the cards. And you're like, no, I want to pay you for them. I'm like, no, take the cards. And you're like, no, if I don't pay you for them, I'll feel bad. And I'm like, I'd rather you feel bad.
Yeah, I was just trying to be nice and be a normal patron. All right, well, what did I think? And I'm going to use I statements because these are my feelings and only my feelings. There were a lot of freaking empty tables on Sunday. I don't know about Friday. I don't know about Saturday. But Sunday when I got there, which was about an hour after it opened to the public, because I sat in traffic forever because traffic was horrible coming up 90. Good Lord, it was bad. But I saw tons and tons of empty tables. If you went up and down every single aisle, counted the number of booths that didn't have anybody at them, you probably could have taken the first 2 sections over by the snack bar and the bathrooms, like all the way at the far left, and made just empty tables. There were that many. There literally were that many. And I lost track because I was trying to like browse and look and stuff like that. And after a while, I was like, you know what, forget it. There's just a ton. Were there other people set up at them? Not really, but there were many of them where there were people sitting at them, like sorting cards, like they were at the tables over by the snack bar. Now, again, it could have been an anomaly. It could have been the typical Sunday where, everybody looks at the time and they're like, well, I'm out of here. I got to go back to Minnesota or drive to St. Louis or wherever. And show promoters hate that. Like you said, they were like telling everybody, if you see empty tables, tell us so we can find out who they are and why they left and everything else. Because it sucks for the general public to walk in. You pay money for admission. You pay money to park if you're driving there. And then just to go in and see a bunch of empty tables. But that being said, lots of overpriced wax. I was not expecting it to be like that. It was worse than it was in the fall, I feel like. I was thinking that enough hockey releases have been out for a while, that the buzz has worn off. But first of all, what few tables actually had hockey wax, they were just way overpriced. Which is a shame, because I actually was shockingly willing to buy some wax this time. I know, likely story. Oh, you saw it was too high, so that's your excuse for not buying. No, my excuse for not buying was directly because of that, because that's what I went for. Because my wife's like, are you going to buy any boxes that we can open? I'm like, I will look. EX 2000? Forget it. I'm not paying $250, $260, $270 for a box. You can forget that right now. Series 2 boxes were still hovering around $140, $150 in most places I saw them. Even as you brought up Synergy. You can buy Synergy online now for down around $100. But nobody at the show had them for that price. They were all $120 plus. So it's kind of crazy. Other than that, I kind of browsed, wandered around. I mean, it was a lot of the same dealers that are most of these shows. A lot of the same inventory. The folks that have the lights on all their displays that usually have the vintage, a lot of graded. he didn't have any of his non-graded hockey this time, so he only had one case, and it was all the premium stuff that was, you know, if your cards start at $250, I'm out. So I looked. I was really tempted on a couple that were in there, but I was like, yeah, maybe next time. I did spend a couple dollars, but honestly, I only spent about $80 at the show, and that's ridiculous for me. Ridiculously low, I should say.
Wow. At a show like that, I mean, there's a lot of empty tables, you say, but there's still a lot of tables that weren't empty. I mean, it was still a big freaking show. I mean,
It was, but the thing is, I mean, everybody knows I'm not drawn to graded cards.
right.
So if you have 17 showcases and everything is slabbed, I'm probably going to walk right by. If hockey catches my eye, I might look. I'll give it a gander, but I'm probably not gonna bite. The hockey guys were there that have all hockey cards and have 78 copies of every Young Gun ever made. But again, that table is everything there is 3 times plus what it should be for the most part.
And they don't price anything. So you
No.
have to ask
Right.
them
Yeah.
every single card. You see a
Yeah.
card that you want, and then you can't even say sticker shock because there's no sticker with the price. It's just like, how much is that card? And they tell you, and you go, oh, okay. And you go, I'm not spending $600 on that card. And you're like, well, how much is this card? Right. And then after like asking them 5 times, you just get tired of it.
Yeah. And it's no secret, I'm notoriously a cheap ass when it comes to a lot of stuff because I don't want to give up a mortgage payment for trading cards. So when you have a raw Marc-Andre Fleury Young Gun and you want $800 for it,
Yeah, that's nuts.
no thank you. When you want $1,100 for a raw John Tavares, no, not happening.
Wait, what? No,
Yeah.
that's not right.
I know it's not right. It's crazy.
I just bought a John Tavares maybe about 6 months ago for under $100.
Mm-hmm. That's what
So
I'm saying.
That's a $200 card, and I was exaggerating. I mean, 1,100. It seemed. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Was it an exclusive or something or high gloss?
I mean, it may have been. I just didn't see it. I just kind of saw what it was, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And so I kind
Right.
of moved along. There was a guy, I don't know if you got to see him or not. There was a guy that had a glass case, and it was all Bedard Young Guns. Did you see that guy?
I didn't.
He was towards the end of an aisle, like kind of towards the back. Like, you know how there's along the back pushing towards like where the autograph section is?
Mm-hmm.
There's that guy that has like all the pictures and
Yeah.
footballs and hockey puck stuff. So it was like the far end of his table, but down one of the aisles, coming back towards the front. He had this table with probably like four showcases, and one showcase, it was all Bedard Young Guns, the entire thing. They were all graded, and most of them in there were 10s, and there were a ton. They were overlapped, so it wasn't like they were all laying flat. They were overlapped on each other, and they were laid out in rows. I couldn't believe how many were in there.
Did you ask how much a 10 was?
I had no interest.
Well, no, just for research purposes.
And I'm like, I want to take out my phone and take a picture of this, but there were so many people like all around him. I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to keep walking. So believe me, don't believe me. I didn't take a picture. Sorry. Pictures or it didn't happen. Well, I didn't take one. And then I found maybe a half dozen or so people that had hockey, that I could flip through, 50-cent dollar boxes, that kind of thing. Our friends were there, and I spent some time with them talking for a while about all sorts of stuff. So I probably wasted a good hour and a half at their table at least while I was there. I even bought like a program and a little Pirates thing from them too, which was kind of cool that I'd never seen before. So, but here's the thing: everything I picked up for that, it was all set filler stuff or like 90s insert or like some interesting penguins that I know I don't have. from various 90s sets that were like inserts, or I don't want to call it rare, but rare by those standards.
Yeah, tough to find, harder to find.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Most of the rest of the time I just walked around and people watched and stuff like that. So I did notice that it seemed like they kept making calls for Jeremy Roenick for an hour straight. I'm like, how long is he signing? It was weird. Like usually you'll hear it and then it'll 15, 20 minutes in, it's like, okay, last call. They were calling numbers for him for a while, so he must have had a line.
It was his first signing since being in the Hall of Fame, right, in Chicago. So maybe
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
people were really into getting him if they never got him before. So
And I wandered over that direction on Sunday too, because that's when all of the Bears were there
Mm-hmm.
for the Super Bowl anniversary.
85, yeah.
I thought for sure there would have been way more people in those lines, but there weren't.
No, because a lot of new people in the hobby weren't alive then.
I mean, there were people. Don't get me wrong. There was probably a decent turnout, but I expected way more than that. Especially for the people that collect like the full pieces where they're getting everybody's signatures, and there might be people that are still out there that they got to fill in the blanks for. But I thought for sure that would have been better. But like you said, you thought it was busy Friday and Saturday, and you thought it was busy Sunday. You're kind of like right in one of those middle lanes where there's a lot of traffic. So if you got 3 rows out to any direction, it was wide open. There weren't people. You weren't like slammed into people and smelling their BO. So I mean, it was a decent show, I guess, but I don't know. I was a little disappointed.
Let me just point out that the last show I went to was White Plains, and it was during football season. So maybe that was the excuse, but I noticed the same thing. Midway on a Sunday, dealers just packing up and leaving.
Yeah, and that's been a thing for a long time. I mean, it happens all the time, especially Chicago shows. Your Bears are on Sunday, forget it. These guys are gone.
Yeah, but I just wonder, even you're saying Sunday people packed up and nothing was happening on Sunday except for Selection Sunday on Sunday night. I don't think people were leaving because of that. So I'm guessing is maybe 3 days is just too much for a show, maybe. Or people just think they can get up and go now, which is, not good because like you said, people just go on a Sunday and they want to, and you advertise a certain number of tables, then you find out that like maybe 20% or 10% of them are not there. That's disappointing. And, we keep saying that the organizers are going to punish people who do this, but I've seen this now at many shows, including the National, where people will pack up on Sunday in the middle of the show.
Well, and I started thinking to myself that maybe I'm just seeing the same tables because I keep going up and down the same aisles. I thought that for a second too. And I'm like, wait a minute, no. And that's when I started keeping track. So I went back up to the front, walked past Beckett and all the goofballs with Pokemon and stuff that were all up front. And then I just started walking up and down to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of vacated space.
So let me just say this real quick. I didn't really observe empty tables. I know that when dealers set up, they could set up Thursday evening, they could set up Friday morning. The show starts at 1 on Friday for VIPs, and you can move your vehicle into the expo center or convention center, whatever you want to call it, like to unload, but you can't park there. So then people have to either park across the street or they park 3 blocks away in the Chicago Transit Authority lot, which is right by the train. The thing is that they told us Sunday, they said the garage door will not open until 4 o'clock. So if dealers were going to load their vehicle, they would have to put their stuff on a cart, exit the convention center through the entrance, take an elevator down to the ground floor, and then haul their stuff outside. But there's like a turnabout where people could drop, like a drop off point, but they say there absolutely no loading or unloading, no loading, unloading, or parking. It's like literally just like you drop somebody off there or you pick somebody up there. So I don't know, like if they left overnight, could have figured out a way to do it. I mean, there's other ways out of the expo center.
Well, that's what I was thinking. They pack stuff up Saturday night, maybe.
Yeah, and
I don't know.
if you got a couple of people at your booth, it's a little easier, obviously. And, I've seen people leave Saturday. I'll overhear them talk to their friends. They'll be like, yeah, somebody just came and bought me out. Or they'll be like, yeah, I just made a $5,000 sale or 8,000, whatever number to them is good. They'll say, yeah, I just made a $10,000 sale. And then they don't want to stay Sunday because whatever they make on Sunday is probably going to be peanuts compared to what they made on Saturday. So then they just go. The way they see it, they have a free day now. So
this is a totally made up hypothesis.
I love those. Those are my favorite.
Yeah, well, people on a Saturday will say, someone bought me out. And I just wonder if that's the repacking culture now all of a sudden. Because
yes,
I've heard dealers say this now more
Absolutely.
recently. I never heard this like 5 years ago. And all of a sudden on a Saturday night, some guy's like, yeah, somebody just bought me out and I'm not coming back tomorrow. I have nothing to sell. And I wonder if that's just happening more and more to the point where like literally 10% of shows are disappearing on a Sunday because of it. It could be what's happening because now Fanatics is doing repacks, right? So everyone's in the repacking business and everyone's looking to gobble up inventory. And so that could be a byproduct of this. And also the fact that some people have told me that some shows are just too long. Like 3-4 days is a long time. He said set up on Thursday. And Tim mentioned something true as well. People want to get back home to Minnesota, St. Louis. Some people fly in from New York. People look to leave halfway. They want to cut bait and they want to leave. And so I think it's a bad user experience, but I also understand the whims of the market and Sunday is typically, people have to go to work on Monday. I understand that. So I wonder, these factors all put together, I think are contributing to this phenomenon, which I don't think is good, but it is what it is, right?
Well, I didn't hear about any major like thefts that it went on at this one. I didn't hear about any like major controversies or fights that went on. I didn't hear about any like former defensive backs confronting former quarterbacks about laying down for other former defensive players to get records. So that didn't happen. PSA had a booth there. The line wasn't 78 miles long. It was long, but it wasn't like it normally is. Neither was the Beckett line. So again, maybe that was just everybody already did all their stuff on Fridays and Saturday. I don't know. Like I said, it was fine for what it was. It wasn't my favorite show. That's for darn sure. But, I don't think it's wearing out its welcome by any means.
I don't think 3 days is too long. A show like this, you spend so much time setting up, you kind of want it to be longer than, obviously longer than a day. I remember for a while I was doing a 1-day show that was sponsored by Ludex. They would limit all the dealers to one table. That's it. You can only get one table. I could be set up in like half an hour. It went pretty quickly, right? But when you want to buy a lot of tables and it takes more time, you kind of almost want it to be more than a day, just because of the hassle. And especially like if you're coming from out of town. But I don't know. I mean, then again, I don't really have to come in from out of town. And the only time I've done out of town shows is the National. And those are 5-day shows. And I got to tell you, I enjoy it. I love doing a 5-day card show, but it is a grind. It's weird that by Saturday, I'm like tired. And I'm like, wow, Saturday and Sunday are the biggest days, but you do Wednesday, including setup, Thursday, Friday, and then you go, wow, there's still Saturday and Sunday to go. You know what I mean? It's just like those are the busiest days usually. Not to change the subject to the National, but what I'm saying though is that I don't know. I mean, I think that isn't that New York show like 2 days, Clemente, or is it a 3-day show?
The White Plains is 3 days. It's Friday and then Saturday,
And
Sunday.
there's some that are even like 4 days. Well, like the Expo, for instance, is 4 days.
Expo feels a little bit like a national where it's big. So 4 days is probably appropriate for that.
Right.
But, that's the thing. I never noticed empty tables at the Expo. So I wonder if
Here's what I'm going to chalk this one up at.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to not be negative because I'm not that kind of person. But what are you laughing at? I think it was the weather, to be honest with you. I know you were stuck inside, Sal, but it was freaking snowing on almost my entire drive up there.
Okay.
Oh, was it really?
And it was so cold. I went and played. Well, I didn't do 36 holes because I screwed up my back, but I would have on Friday. It was like 75 degrees out. And then here I am Sunday morning driving up to Rosemont in the snow. It wasn't really sticking that much, but still, it was snowing. And at one point, when I crossed over the Illinois border, coming up 394, just before the 294 interchange there, you couldn't even see. It was snowing so hard. So I think maybe people looked at the forecast, saw that it was going to get cold, hit the show up Friday and Saturday, and just ditched it on Sunday.
Interesting. And I think they were doing other things on Friday because it was a nice day out.
Yeah. So I don't know. Hopefully that's not indicative of how things are going to go, but I guess we'll see. Nationals coming up, so
Let me ask you this, Sal. Did you notice like people asking you? It's a year after Bedard, so was there a lot of people looking for Bedard, and also what people asking for Ovechkin, given that he's in the middle of or he's getting very close now to breaking the goals record.
I think I sold 2 Bedard cards the whole weekend. And a few people asked for a young gun, which I didn't have for sale. A few people tried to sell me young guns of Bedard. So there are definitely people trying to sell the young guns. And you look at like a PSA 10, somebody offered to sell me a PSA 10 Bedard young gun for $500. People wanted $200 for a PSA 9. Now, this is selling to me as a dealer. Sometimes I just want to know what people want for something, right? Because sometimes they say, oh, especially for like lower end cards, they'll just say, oh, I don't care, just give me this much, right? Because they don't have any emotional attachment or whatever. And sometimes they have like money tied up and stuff, especially with a higher dollar card. I'll say, what are you looking to get for this? One guy had a couple of PSA 9s that he was looking to sell, and somebody had a raw one. So there wasn't the demand there for Bedard. I really noticed that at this show. As far as Ovechkin, people were looking for Ovechkin cards, and they weren't asking for a young gun. They were actually just looking for just cards like of his. Somebody said to me, I want an Ovechkin card, but I want an inexpensive card. And I said, hey, I got this. Here's a second year card for $5. And he says, that's awesome. Thank you. That was it. They made the guy's day. I had a game dated moment card in my case for like $10. This kid walked up. He pulled out $10. He's like, I was at that game when he did that, whatever the moment was. I forgot what it was, but he's like, I was at that game. Could have been the 800th goal that he scored. And he bought the card and was like super happy about it, right? So it was like that. Like I was selling, and I like a lot of $1 or $2 Ovechkin cards. So it's kind of like people just want a card of Ovechkin because he's going to break the record, and they just want to have something of his, which is what trading cards is about, right? Like it's like you want to have some collectible of this player, when they set a record, right? You just want to have this like tangible piece of ephemera, right? And you're not going to be able to afford a stick. You're not going to be able to afford a jersey. Might not even be able to afford a rookie card, but you could afford a trading card of that player. And so I think that's when it's good to have the lower end stuff that I carry, because that makes people happy. You know what I mean? I like that. I don't know if that answers your questions.
No, it does. It gives me sort of a snapshot into what, because I remember a couple of years ago, everyone was asking you about Ovechkin cards. That was like a pandemic thing. And now that he's really close to the record, I can see the values kind of going crazy. It's not just people, asking for young guns. It's people who are happy with, with almost any card of that player, which is good because it means these are true collectors as opposed to, the guys in the, with the cases who are looking to, flip cards. So that's encouraging.
When I started doing shows, I realized pretty quickly that the guys with the cases were not going to be my customers because they're just looking to resell. If somebody has a card that's worth $1,000, they're probably going to want to get $1,000 for it. But even if I have to like be a pain and say, "Oh, would you take this much a day? $800," right? Like if I spend $800 to get a card that I sell for $1,000, that's a lot of effort. And then the person who wants to buy that card wants to pay 800 or 900 for it, right? You know what I mean? It's like it's too much work for too little gain. That's not who I want to cater to, right? The bro cases, they're going to do what they want to do. They're going to figure out, they're going to basically gravitate whatever the new hotness is. I found this out with Connor McDavid because in 2021, everything Connor McDavid was selling, every single freaking card that I had. And so I said, I need more of his cards. So then I was buying up a lot of his cards, like low end, mid range, inserts, parallels, stuff like that. And then I got stuck with them because people moved on to the next thing. You know, even though Connor McDavid is still an awesome player, he's still the same player he was in 2021, if not better. But the hobby has just kind of moved on to something else. So now these cards that I couldn't have enough of in 2021, I'm now stuck with in 2025. So I don't want to follow trends so much. You got to follow trends a little bit. But I think also sometimes you make those trends. You know what I mean? Or you carve your own path and then people follow. You know, because when people come to my table and they say, "Wow, you have a lot of cool stuff I've never seen before," and they buy it, you know, or they say, "I never knew this existed," and they buy it. That's okay too.
But then you can set the price to whatever you want because they've never seen it, so they don't know what it should be priced at. That's called pumping and dumping. I learned that. I'm just kidding. That was making a joke. See, you really know that people are interested when they come to your table and start asking you for 2004 World Sport Russian Superliga cards of Alex Ovechkin. Then you know it's about to go off when they start asking for those.
I should get some of those.
I'm surprised you don't already have them.
Well, I have one. So. I have an OV card from, I want to say from 04 or 05. Yes.
Well, there was the 04 World Sport Superliga set, and then there was the 04-05 Sports Collection Russia Super League set. They're different.
I'll have to see which one I have.
Fun fact. But, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. How many times have we said kind of those types of things, right? The inserts from like second year, third year, or even the base cards for some of the guys. Like, remember how shocked I was when I saw what you were selling McDavid's second year card for?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is a base card, dude. Why do you have it priced like that? And people were buying them. I'm like, what is going on right now? It's insanity to me. And it harkens back to like the old days of the price guide when you'd flip through the price guide and you'd see second year cards that sometimes had $4, $5, $6 values on them in the price guide. And you'd be like, this is a second year card. This isn't even a rookie. Why? Like, why is it like that? I guess hype pushes demand, obviously. I mean, there's no question. But I think the Ovechkin thing is about to pop. He breaks the record, everybody's going to want everything, and it's going to all fly off the shelves, and then 6 months later, it's all going to go back to normal. So get your supply up. The National, Ovi's going to be huge.
Yeah, unless he's one goal shy by the end of the season.
I don't think so. I think
he'll make it.
I think he's going to break it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
It's already in the script. I mean, he'll make it, yeah.
Let's talk about that Wayne Gretzky stick that's up for auction. I thought this was an interesting story that some guy bought a Gretzky game-used stick.
Yeah.
Wasn't really associated with a game. I guess a season maybe, but not necessarily a game. Just kind of like a time period. And he got the stick. He did some research. And it turns out that it was the stick that Gretzky used when he scored the goal to break Phil Esposito's goal scoring record in a single season. So 81-82, Gretzky had 92 goals that season, which is a record. I believe the previous record, I know Phil Esposito had it. I think it was 76 goals. And so now that guy bought that stick for about $4,000, and it's up for auction with Sotheby's of all places, and has a pre-sale estimate of $100,000 to $200,000.
Did you read about how he figured out, though? I mean, it was more than just photo matching it, because he was looking at the stick and he wanted to figure out, like, hey, I wonder where this is from, and he noticed that on the stick it was signed by Gretzky, but also Gilbert Perreault. So he's like, okay, well, where would them two have been together? Like, what game did they play against each other in? And that's what sent him down the path. And every picture he saw, it was that stick. He's just like, I need to look this up and do more research. And that's kind of how that whole thing came about. It's interesting how memorabilia and things like that, in one sentence, like, yeah, this is a Gretzky stick. Well, that should be enough, right? It's Gretzky's stick. That's the guy paid almost $4,000 for it. And that was the cheapest one. Like, he was targeting a bunch of different ones. So there were obviously ones that were priced higher than that. Nondescript game use stick. Okay, cool. $4,000. Well, that's what it's worth. It's worth $4,000. Now all of a sudden you find it in pictures and see where it was actually used. That adds all that whole other perspective on it. This is kind of like people that collect ticket stubs, but if you have certain ticket stubs from a specific game where something happened at that game, all of a sudden you've quadrupled, quintupled the premium you're willing to pay. And it could look just like all the others, but it just somehow there's that. It's interesting.
People now have items from various athletes, nondescript. They're going to go and try to photo match their stuff now, because you never know. You may have something worth $1,000 that's worth 100 times that now, right? Because people are looking, like you said, like the ticket stub culture of that particular game or that moment or whatever it is. And it's an interesting story. It's actually a really fascinating one. And I think a lot more people are going to do research into what they have. It's just having a baseball or a glove or a stick from a player from a particular season, and that's all you know. There could be more to it, for sure.
And that's the other thing too, with the internet like it is now. I mean, think about it when we were started off collecting.
You can't look up Getty photos or AP photos like at home, right?
Right. You don't have access to that information. You would have to hire a service, like an archival service, or somebody that was a professional to do this kind of thing. Now you have the entire world at your fingertips and you just can start searching.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, even with the applications like, with Google and their like photo matching on your phone or on the app, or, with AI like it is, hey, go find where this came from.
Yeah, it's like internet sleuth.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is, Yeah.
It's interesting. The premium on these things is so high that it's gonna, if people aren't already doing it, I think everybody should go through all of their collection of memorabilia and try to find a couple extra bucks.
Well, the interesting thing is that the dealers who have this stuff, they should probably do it first, because they're the ones like he bought the stick for $4,000 from a guy who didn't know what he was selling, other than it is a Gretzky owned and game used, season used stick. That's all he knew.
Right.
That's all he cared to know, because whatever. So now, and I'm same thing with jerseys. I mean, all this stuff. I mean, it's going to be, this could be the beginning. This reminds me, like in the 90s, when that guy went to a junk sale and bought, I don't know, a framed picture of something, and they found behind it like one of the early copies of the U.S. Constitution, and it was worth like a lot of money. And everybody thought, oh, I got to open up every framed thing I have. You never know what's hiding behind there, right? And so this hockey stick might, if it sells for this amount, could open the door for all this other stuff that people never thought of before.
Well, coincidentally, this collector, he's got 37 missed calls from the guy he bought this from. So.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy. I don't know who that guy is,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. Who's his number? Oh, I'm not answering that.
Block,
Voicemail.
delete, block,
Yeah.
report. I guess I'm gonna have to see if if I could photo match my Lemieux game used stick.
I tried it on my Crosby blade. And obviously it was used, but it's practice. It's from practice stick because he never used that blade in games, but he was testing out the blades during practices. So they were the interchangeable blades that you'd put on the shaft and utilize them. It's got tape residue on it, so it was already taped up, which means it was taken out there on the ice. And these were the ones that he was using, and it's got his stamp on the back of it. That's as far as I got with it.
I need to clarify. When I said Lemieux game used stick, I meant Jocelyn Lemieux of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Oh, I thought you meant Claude.
Yeah. Yeah, it was used to high stick Chris Draper in the face, right? That would be the Claude Lemieux stick we'd want, right? Like photo match.
If that's got Draper DNA on it, it's got to be
Yeah,
worth a lot.
it's got pieces of Chris Draper's teeth embedded into the stick where Claude Lemieux cross-checked him in the face. I got a couple of game used sticks from a few different Blackhawk players, but none of the really big names. I think maybe I should try to photo match them on some hockey cards because I think these sticks. Let me think. My aunt got them. She got two of them from a season ticket holder party, like a raffle. Jocelyn Lemieux and Dirk Graham. And so she either got them in 89 or 90. So if she got them in 90 or 91 even, they might be on some hockey cards is what I'm saying. Because the wooden sticks actually lasted a long time. They didn't, like these fiberglass composite sticks, how many broken sticks do we see in a game? At least two? Feels like it.
Yeah.
Sticks are always breaking, and then once they break it, they get rid of it. When the stick doesn't break, they're going to just keep using it, So these sticks, I'm not saying they lasted the full season, but I feel like they definitely lived longer than the sticks of today. So I should try to photo match them. I think that'd be kind of a fun little project. Maybe I'll do that.
You ever seen what the stick budget is for most NHL teams?
No idea.
Annually, it's upwards of like $500,000. The stick budget.
Wow.
Not to mention the players that have licensing with manufacturers and only want to use certain types of sticks and that kind of thing. Cost per stick is around $200 to $230 in most cases. And these things break like nothing. They're like toothpicks. So it's kind of crazy to think about.
Okay, let's talk about the Professional Women's Hockey League and how their players are being overwhelmed by autograph requests. I thought this was an interesting story. So, what's the deal on that?
Yeah, I was talking to our friend Drew Pelto, a host of TTM Cast, and he was saying how a lot of message boards, a lot of different, he's big into graphing, obviously, and a lot of message boards are saying that a lot of the PWHL teams are sending fans just form letters saying thank you for writing to us, but we can't fulfill your autograph request due to overwhelming number of requests. And I think it's because a couple of things. One, the popularity of the league, obviously, in the second season, but also the fact that cards came out recently. People had them and figured let me mail them in. They'll probably sign them and mail them back, and that's not happening. And I think it's because they're flooded, obviously. And number two, we have to also realize that a lot of these teams have very small front office operation. It's not like an NHL team that gets, requests and they can try to fulfill them or even mail you back like a fan pack or sticker or something. They can't even mail back stuff. They've gotten so many, various teams have. So just an interesting tidbit in the fact that PWHL continues to sort of surprise everybody with its popularity. And this is just another example of so if you've mailed to these teams, you're probably not going to get your cards, you're not going to get an autograph, you're not going to get anything for now because of they're just being flooded.
I heard that they have limitations in their CBA as far as what and how much can be signed at any given time. I don't know if that's true or not,
Oh,
but someone on Twitter,
that's interesting.
X, whatever we're calling it today, that does a lot with women's hockey, posted something a while back talking about post-game autograph sessions that they have. And it said something about they're limited to 30 minutes. That's it. So after the game, they'll set up 30 minutes, in and out. That's it.
That's it.
So I don't know if that's part of their CBA or not, or maybe that was a team rule, but that's kind of how they did it. So it wouldn't surprise me because the demand is there. I mean, it really is. They're selling out places that they go when they're traveling around. They're doing really well. Tickets for the games during the regular season. I mean, they have some challenges in Boston just because of the arena, but most of the other places, they're doing really well, and it's taken off. Whether you believe they're all short printed or not, the Upper Deck cards are practically impossible to find now. So,
Yeah.
At least at a decent price. So,
Yeah, it's funny how all this good news about the league is often equals bad news for some fans, but I think it's just growing pains. I think give them a little time and this will sort of settle down and everyone will figure out demand and supply and then everyone will be happy. But yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon. I don't think anyone expected it. It's basically the surprise of the year in terms of the hockey hobby for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
I would tend to agree with that.
Yeah. So, well, that's good. I mean, like you said, there's growing pains, but when something is successful, I mean, there's always going to be problems. Think about like if a movie is super popular, super successful, it's hard to get a ticket to go see it, right? Because it's sold out. Like think about like when a new Star Wars movie comes out, right? And there's like a demand for it, and people buying tickets ahead of time and stuff like that, or whatever, right? So when something is becomes super popular, there's going to be problems that crop up.
Yeah, it makes me think of the old Yogi Berra saying, restaurant's so popular nobody goes there anymore. And so that's sort of true, and that some people don't go because you just can't get in, you can't get access, right? And so so it's kind of true in this case.
Let me ask this, Al. Did you have anybody ask you for women's hockey cards over the weekend?
No, I brought a couple, put them in my case. Nobody even asked about them. One guy saw them in my case and he said to me, I lucked out. I was able to find 4 boxes at $75 each at a local store.
What's his name? Clemente?
This guy got me beat. This guy got me beat.
He's like, I was able to find 4 boxes at a local store before these blew up in popularity.
You know what? I think the guy that store is the same guy that sold the hockey stick, the Gretzky stick to that guy.
Probably.
Right, yep.
Guy needs to have his license revoked. He's doing it wrong.
Okay, let's talk tariffs, shall we?
By the way, I didn't have this on the bingo card at all.
What?
Tariffs.
Tariffs. Yeah, no. Hey, it's a different topic.
It's a different world.
And the thing too is that I don't really think about like when I mention prices, like when I write an article and I mention prices, I don't always specify US or Canadian, which I should, because a lot of the readers and listeners are Canadian, obviously, but I'm American, so I think about just the things in US dollars. It's kind of like the same with Beckett. Beckett, I remember they would get complaints in their letters section. They'd say, "Oh, your prices are in American," and they'd say, "Yeah, we're in Texas." You know what I mean? Like so, and I get it. But when we say, "Oh, Upper Deck Series 1 is $10 a pack," well, Canada, it's like $13.79 a pack or something, right? I don't always think about that. Our friend Jordan Papadopoulos, who we know from the Expo, and he listens to this show, he reached out to me on Facebook, which is still called Facebook, and and asked how I thought that the tariffs would affect the cards, and we started talking about that. Clemente pointed out an article on Sports Collectors Daily, which I will link to, that kind of broke it down. Basically, as far as hockey cards go, when you look at Topps Fanatics, they don't make hockey cards. They do make hockey stickers. They make their Tops Now stickers and their hockey sticker album stickers. Those are printed in the US. Upper Deck prints their cards in Italy, and those get brought into the United States. Currently, there's no tariff on that because the president is pausing tariffs on things coming into the US. However, the hockey cards then travel up to Canada, and there is a 25% tariff as of this recording of this podcast episode of products moving into Canada, and that would include hockey cards. So those $13.79 packs of cards are now going to be more. And that's not even counting the tax, right? The taxes, the GST, on top of the tariffs, on top of the unfavorable exchange rate.
It's even worse now.
Yeah, becoming a very unfavorable, very bad situation for card collectors, right? Because it's like you like the cards, but they're not cheap. I think about like this is not the same thing, but like I have a brother who's 14 years younger than me, and he loved Pokemon cards. I buy him Pokemon cards in the 90s. They were like maybe $2 a pack or whatever. But he wanted the Japanese cards because all the kids wanted the Japanese Pokemon cards. And I was able to get those for him through a comic book store that my roommate in college worked at. But those were like $10 a pack, because they were imported, an exchange rate. And, the yen was stronger than the dollar back then. So it's just like, yeah, okay, this $3, $2, $3 pack of cards is now $10 because it's coming from another country. So kind of reminds me of that a little bit, even though I said it's not kind of the same, but feels that way a little bit. What do you guys think?
You go first. I got to think of words that rhyme because I'm a poet.
Not all poets rhyme.
Look, we can discuss the merits politically of whether tariffs work or not, and a lot of economists say it doesn't work, and I understand that. In this case, it seems really unfair because the Canadian market for hockey cards is really what drives it. Hockey is the number one sport in Canada. It's, I'm sure there are more collectors there than in America, probably. But the product is made here in the United States, and Upper Deck makes them. And as a result, they're going to end up paying more. And I assume it's just for closed, sealed wax, right? So it makes wax that's already unaffordable even more expensive. Now, this is a one-way street because Canada doesn't produce any kind of products in terms of hockey cards that we buy. So this is only going to affect them. It doesn't affect us. But it does affect us if we go to the expo and you want to buy sealed wax. It's probably going to be ridiculous. It's already ridiculous, but it's going to be even more ridiculous. And so in that case, it does, create this sort of dual market. And then, there's the whole eBay aspect, which we can get into a little bit later, obviously, in terms of what if I bought the product on eBay, but you're Canadian, you buy it on eBay from an American, then, do you end up paying the tariff or not, right? But, I find the tariffs on the Canadians totally unfair. And Canada is a friend of ours, an ally, and I'm not really a big fan of levying a big tariff on them. Now, I have friends who've told me, look, the president really wants to just put tariffs on Mexico, but to be fair, he then imposes it also on Canada, right? And so as a result, just when you think the hobby is divorced from reality sometimes, and we were talking at the beginning of the podcast about how this is an escape from everyday life, politics, whatever. It's therapy. Well, in this case, it's not. Whatever's happening in the real world is spilling over into this fantasy world of sports card collecting that we've created for ourselves. And it's just very interesting to me because when I read about the tariffs, my first thought was about, well, how much will it impact food and other things? I'm not really thinking about sports cards. But you Google it and you realize, oh, there's a lot of discussion on this, not just journalism around it, but there's a lot of message boards and a lot of messages about, and the fact that our friend Jordan is mentioning this, it's something on their mind, obviously. And so if you're a Canadian collector at this moment, it's not a good time. And I don't know what Upper Deck is going to do because they can't do anything about it. They're kind of stuck.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. I mean, look, first things first. Remember, so the de minimis rule is still in place until it's not. So $800, that's still in effect. So if you're bringing stuff back and forth across the border, that's kind of your cutoff. So if you go up to the expo and you buy an $800 box, I'm sorry. But if you buy a $200 box and that's all you buy and you're trying to bring it back, you shouldn't be taxed again because you should be able to come tariff free and bring it back in. And that's Canada, Mexico, China. That's where that specifically was targeted for. And it's always been that way. As part of the plan, it was to take that away. But if you remember, USPS and UPS both were like, we don't know how to handle duty collection on this stuff. Like, we have no mechanism to do that. So until they can figure out how to do it efficiently, it'll probably stay the same. That being said, I hate to try to play devil's advocate to this because I know it sucks. It absolutely does suck. And I certainly am not going to jump into the political trap of Orange Man bad and join that crusade because that's not what this is. Here's my counterpoint to all of it, right? Pricing goes up, tariffs go up, less product becomes available. If less product becomes available, that means there's less product that's being ripped. If there's less product being ripped, that's less quantity that's out there on the market, and that's less chance of the bigger cards. Since we're talking about hockey, we'll call it what it is, the young gun cards. The less chance of these to tank after supply is watered down within 3 days of the product being on the market. So, for instance, Series 2 comes out, and there's Celebrini Young Gun in there, and it comes out and everybody's selling it for $400. Within 2 weeks, there's now 90,000 of them available on the internet to purchase. Well, now it's no longer 400 and it's down to 200. If you get rid of the overabundance of supply because it isn't available, maybe that settles more around 300 and maybe it holds for a little bit longer. I don't know. I feel like there's less chance for the bottom to fall out because you just don't have the supply and the demand's going to remain because people are going to want the stuff. They just don't want to pay the higher price. But you're right. What's Upper Deck going to do? Because their hands are tied. You have to believe, though, with as rabid of a fan base in Canada for hockey, Upper Deck's going to have to do something to not let pricing get so far out of control that it affects their bottom line.
Right.
They're not going to allow that. So, the last thing they're going to want to do is increase their initial pricing so that the liability for the distributors and the direct dealers is just, completely, cost prohibitive to the point where they just don't buy product. So they're going to have to adjust at some point, whether it's they're adjusting supply, whether it's they're adjusting initial price, because let's be honest. We know that some of these initial prices are a little out of control and there's probably some meat on the bone. So if you can sacrifice a little bit of profit out the door to maintain a supply, because here's the thing, Series 2 is already out, right? No tariffs. It's already out. It's been distributed.
Right.
EX is already out. Saw it on the shelves this weekend. So these things went into effect now. That stuff's immune. Everything that comes out from this point forward, now it's going to get hit. And so what do we got left? We've got Extended that'll eventually come out. We've got some higher end products like Ultimate, Premier. I don't know. There's a bunch of things on the calendar that I'm not looking at the moment, but there's.
But it's not the big stuff like the flag, like you said, flagship series 1, 2. That's done already.
Yeah,
That's the
1 and 2 are
yeah.
done, and we all know how the
Yeah.
excitement around Extended gets. So you have some of these higher end
Right.
premium ones that are traditionally breaker product. So you increase these prices through the distributors or the direct dealers. If there's any breakers that are on this, okay, well they're paying $300 for a box that retails for $400. Okay, now they're paying $400 for a box that's retailing for $500. Okay, so now that's going to go up. So maybe they think twice about breaking this, which leaves more product on the shelves later on that potentially could keep value. That's all I'm saying. I think if we're going to turn a positive to this at all, maybe it creates a hold line for values, at least until something's figured out. Look, are these things going to stick forever? No, they can't. There's already been negotiations. This stuff keeps changing every single day, right?
Well, you heard Sal say as it's recording
Yeah,
because he
you have
knows
to say
that
that,
it can change
right?
tomorrow.
Because we've seen already, this does go both ways, and we've already seen that things have been said, stuff has been planned, it's been backed off of, it's been put on pause. It's like every single day there's a different policy change, one way or another, or the verbiage changes or whatever. I mean, here's the other thing that everybody's been up in arms at. It's kind of parallel to this. I mean, look at that announcement PSA made, right? Like a week or two ago when the tariffs were being announced and everything. They're like, well, we're going to suspend services for all the direct shipments that are coming across from Canada to our locations here. People in Canada can still send them to the Canadian locations. For now, we're going to suspend for down here coming across the border until we can figure this stuff out. Well, that raises the question of what are we putting tariffs on? I thought it was goods and services. But if you think about what that is, you're taking your product that you already own, it's your thing, you're sending it to them, they're providing a service, and then they're returning your stuff to you, right? There's no tariff on return goods. There's tariff on the service, but there's no tariff on the return goods. So now you throw that out there into the ether. Well, what is their service based on? Do they have a $25 per card thing or a $30 or $50, whatever it is? Yeah, they do. But also their higher end stuff, their premium stuff, what is it based off of? It's based on value. They charge you based off the value of the card. So if you have a card that's worth a ton of money, yeah, you're going to be paying a tariff on the service that they provide. Now, I don't know everything about that, but I would imagine them sending the card back to you isn't going to get tariffed because that's return. They're returning the thing you already own. It's return goods. But I mean, the service, yeah, I can see that. I don't know. Like I'm not an expert on tariffs. I studied history in school and I know about tariffs and I know how they worked throughout history, and sometimes they serve a purpose, sometimes they're punitive.
I think this is where we all take the hockey cards and throw them into Boston Harbor and protest.
Tops did that once, and that's why we don't have very many Mantle rookies. They just protested that nobody bought their stuff. That's why.
Actually, that's not Mantle's rookie card.
First Topps card, right? First Topps card.
If you tell yourself a lie enough times, you start to believe it, right? So the Mantle rookie, yes, the first Topps card. Remember when the price guides used to have FTC for first Topps card next to the listing? Like they would list like 89.90 Theron Fleury O-Pee-Chee RC, but 90.91 Topps Theron Fleury FTC first Topps card. Like that was a big deal. And I know they did that probably more with baseball when you had guys like Fleer and Donruss sometimes getting the scoop on Topps. And then there was the whole XRC thing. We talked about this. I think we talked about this in a podcast a long time ago. I remember talking about XRCs.
We probably did. Because I bring up my Bill Guerin 91, 92 Parkhurst all the time. That's an XRC.
Yeah, it is.
Because it wasn't a major release.
Or pack pulled or whatever, the whole.
It's from a mail-in set. So
right,
that's why it was labeled that.
Yeah, like the Topps traded cards.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
When I had the opportunity to get Ozzie Guillen's autograph for free, Chicago White Sox player and later manager, Ozzie Guillen, and I thought, what do I want to get signed? And I'm like, oh my God, he had an 85 Topps traded card. It's an XRC. I don't care. I love the 85 Topps baseball set. So whenever I have an opportunity to get one of those signed, I will, just because that's where I started collecting sports cards, which was with 85 Topps baseball. I wanted to bring up something you said earlier. Didn't you say something earlier about like you forgot you had something and then you rediscover it and it makes you happy? Is that your story, Clemente?
Yes. Yes.
I started collecting sports cards in '85. I was buying Topps baseball cards, as I just said. And I remember like someone gave me a pack of hockey cards, '84, '85 Topps hockey cards. And I remember opening the cards and looking at them. And the person said, you can just keep them, right? Because it wasn't anybody good. And so for all those years, I had the hockey cards, these whatever, however many were in that pack, maybe 9 cards, maybe 15 cards. I don't know. I didn't know who any of the guys were. There weren't any Blackhawks in the pack. And they just ended up being in the box with my baseball cards. A couple of years later, I was going through that shoebox of baseball cards and I found the Topps hockey cards. It's now 1987. And I'm like, oh, I have these random hockey cards. I don't want these. And I grabbed them. At first, I went to tear the stack of cards in half. Swear to God. No, first I went to throw them out. I went to put them in the trash because I didn't want these hockey cards.
Pretty extreme, isn't it?
Huh? What?
It's pretty extreme, isn't it? Just tearing them in half.
But I didn't do that. And then you know what I said to myself? I said, you know what? Maybe I'll meet somebody who will want these hockey cards one day. And I put them back in the box behind all my baseball cards. 2 years later, it's now 1989. I'm going through my baseball cards, and oh my God, I have hockey cards. No freaking way. Oh my God, Dino Cicerelli. I know this guy. I saw him play in a game the other day. So all of a sudden, these cards that I didn't want 2 years earlier that I forgot that I had in my quote unquote collection, that being a Nike shoebox that was under my bed, all of a sudden these became like the first hockey cards that I owned.
I have a theory with cards. I don't throw them out ever. Even I'll give them away, but I won't throw them out. It's like books. I don't throw books out either. I just give them away.
No, that's right though. But like, you know what? As a kid, sometimes I would just do stupid things like that. I would just be like, well, I don't need this. Now I hoarded or collected or whatever you want to say a lot of things, but sometimes there were just things that I don't know, like for whatever stupid reason, I would just like just be like, I don't need this. And then I'd get rid of it. And then like years later, it'd be like, why did I give that away? Or why did I get rid of that or whatever? But you know what? Everybody has stories like that.
Yeah.
I rediscovered some hockey cards that I had, got them in '85. So had them for 4 years. And, at that point when I found them in '89, I put them in 9 pocket pages because I didn't have that set yet. So it was just cool to have some cards of that sport that I had become a fan of. And, fast forward now 40 years or whatever, and I'm 35 years and I'm doing a podcast about hockey cards. So funny how that works out.
Full circle.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, although you didn't really give your opinion of the tariffs.
They're stupid. It's just
okay. And with that, we'll end the show.
No, I mean,
thanks, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're stupid. Thanks for listening.
Listen, if I understand this correctly, tariffs are imposed to protect domestic made goods. So if we make cars in America, I know we don't, but if we make cars in America, we want people to buy American cars. If they say, I could buy these cars from Japan or from China or from another country that get imported here, then you put a tariff on those cars so that the price is artificially higher so that people will be encouraged to buy the domestic products. Am I understanding this correctly? I'm not an economics guy, but does that sound about right?
In the simplest form, yeah. And every country does it.
Yes.
Because not only are you trying to protect the goods, you're trying to protect the infrastructure surrounding those goods.
Right.
It's the jobs for the people that make it. It's the businesses that are producing it.
To keep the competition at bay, right?
Right. Yep.
Either because the imports are cheaper, so you need to bring their prices up a bit so that they're not undercutting the American products, or because it's a luxury item and you can get away with it if it's like an imported sports car. You put a tariff on that so that it's, I don't know. I guess those are going to be expensive anyways, but
yeah, no, but generally I think what's going on in this case is that other countries impose heavy tariffs on American products, and we just haven't reciprocated it to the same level,
Nope.
right?
Never
And
had,
so
because we
Trump is trying to,
don't.
right,
I mean, for whatever reason, it's generally
right.
because, well, we're just gonna.
We're big free market
Yeah,
people in America, and so it's like whatever.
yeah.
But now Trump sees this as a way to sort of get back and defend American products. Now, in the case of Upper Deck, right? Like we produce the products that in Canada they really want, and there's no other way unless Upper Deck can find a way to say, hey, we're going to print these in Canada, which is impossible because I know printing cars is not an easy thing. Set that up.
Is there even a facility up there that can handle that kind of thing? I don't think there is.
They'll need to reopen the O-Pee-Chee factory.
Yeah, the one that they did the Gretzky rookie cards. They can do those. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. But no, I mean, there's probably nothing that you can just like turnkey. Like, hey, let's go. Because if Upper Deck can do that, they would. And they would have made them there the whole time, probably, because it's not cheaper to make them in Italy. I can't imagine, because Italy probably has the machines, right? And so that's why they do it there.
I think a lot of it has to do also with the paper that they use. Like I don't,
Right.
I mean, it must be because if you're printing cards on paper or cardstock or whatever, you're not going to fly the cardstock halfway around the world to a facility in another country. You're
It's not cost effective.
no, so I guess if like the two things you need are cardstock and ink, it just makes sense to not have to fly that in super far, to the facility. You want it to be preferably in the same country or on the same continent at least.
Well, since Fanatics bought the big facility in Texas, I mean, everybody used to print them in Texas.
Yeah.
Now Fanatics owns it, so it's like, okay. I know there's a facility in Florida, but I don't think it's capable of doing that type of quantity.
Right. And another thing is like I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is true anymore, but I remember when oh crap. No, wait, never mind. I can't tell this story because that would be the final spot on Clemente's bingo card.
Oh no, that's a story about Sal working retail.
It's about the time when you worked for the toy company?
No,
Wait, the t-shirt kiosk,
no, go further back.
the comic book store.
Comic book store?
Yeah, the comic
Okay.
book store. The comic books were printed in Canada at the time because it was cheaper.
Right.
Seriously,
Yeah.
because the UPS would deliver the comic books from Canada to the distributor, and they would say printed in Canada, and the reason was because the Canadian dollar was weaker at that time. It was like 80 cents on the dollar, 70 cents on the dollar, kind of like what it is now, and so it was cheaper for Marvel and for DC to print their comic books in Canada and then just bring them here, and so that does happen. I mean, producing stuff in other countries and bringing it here because it's cheaper. I mean, Italy, I don't know if it's cheaper, but it could just be because the facility's state of the art or whatever. I don't know. Look, that's one thing I don't understand. If hockey cards are more popular in Canada, they should have a factory in Canada. It just makes sense. It just makes sense.
It's funny you say that because this whole tariff fiasco kind of made me think the same thing. Like, because when Opeachy was making cards, I assumed they were making them in Canada,
They're making them in Canada.
and Topps was making them here.
Yes.
And then you couldn't get whatever, it was that whole thing. But it would make total sense for Upper Deck to say, hey, you know what? Let's put a facility in Canada, print there. That's where our bread and butter is. I mean, yeah, we're an American company, but if you look at the sales around the world, I'm sure Canada is number one for them. And so it would make the most sense. Tariffs or not, it would make the most sense. But it's just the way it is, right? And now they find themselves in this weird sort of predicament.
They just want you to go and buy stuff on ePack, then there won't be any tariffs.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I guess you buy something on ePack, you transfer it to your ComC account, and ComC has
And you just get it shipped.
has a warehouse in Canada.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
There you go. We just solved the whole problem.
But they got to get from ComC to ComC Canada, right? Like they have to move across the border.
That's just shipping cost, though, right? It's not a tariff on that.
Yeah, As long as it's not over $800, you're cool.
There you go. Hey, you solved it. There you go, Sal.
All right.
We just solved the problem. See, we're here to solve problems.
Well, I think we need to end the podcast now on a high note because I solved the tariff problem all by myself. Me.
And you said it was stupid. Come on.
Well, they're still kind of dumb. But anyway, so yeah, this was a good episode. So thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you like to read, please check out the newsletter at puckjunk.com/newsletter. If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, you could purchase a t-shirt at shop.puckjunk.com. Until next time, like what you like.